Okay, this is the quick version of female reproduction. So the first part, up in the brain, you have the hypothalamus, which releases GnRH, and then the anterior pituitary gets that message and releases both FSH and LH. So in the beginning of the cycle, especially FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and some LH as well, acts on the follicle. So this has your oocyte. This is inside of the ovary, and basically causes this follicle to grow and develop. As it gets bigger, it secretes more and more estrogen. And then finally, when you have this large amount of estrogen, this actually stimulates the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary to increase a large amount of FSH and LH. So this large estrogen causes this spike or peak, large release of LH and also FSH. And then this peak specifically in LH is what triggers ovulation or the release of the oocyte from the follicle. And then this LH luteinizing hormone also causes the conversion of the follicle into the corpus luteum. So the corpus luteum is inside of the ovary. And mainly the second half of the cycle is controlled by the fact that the corpus luteum secretes both estrogen and now a lot of progesterone too. And so this estrogen and progesterone together in the second half of the cycle basically does two things. So the first thing is that it causes the endometrium, the lining of the uterus, to build up in the first place. So as estrogen is produced, as progesterone is released, you have the lining thickening and preparing to house an embryo in here, if need be, in the lining of the uterus. And then the other thing is that estrogen and progesterone inhibit the pituitary hormones. So the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary are inhibited by estrogen and progesterone. So when you have a lot of these hormones, you have the levels of FSH and LH coming down. And the reason for this essentially is that you don't have another follicle or oocyte developing at the same time that you may have a pregnancy here. However, if there isn't a pregnancy, the corpus luteum can only last for so long, about 14 days. And so eventually this degrades and basically stops producing hormones. So the level of estrogen and progesterone fall off. And when they do, they stop doing these two things. So no corpus luteum, low level of hormones. The endometrium, which was due to these hormones, falls away in the very beginning. So 3 to 5 days of menstruation, or the release, or the kind of falling off of the uterine lining. And then when you have now these low levels, they're not inhibiting LH and FSH. So then these can increase, and then you have another oocyte developing in the next cycle. So now if there is pregnancy, if an embryo implants in the uterus, now this hormone HCG is released from the embryo, and then the HCG causes the corpus luteum to stick around and keep secreting estrogen and progesterone. So these are coming from the corpus luteum, and then these continue doing what they always do: keep the endometrium around for the growing embryo and inhibit FSH and LH so that a second oocyte doesn't develop and become released. Then eventually the level of HCG drops. We eventually let the corpus luteum kind of waste away, and the placenta, the part that exchanges materials in between the mother and the baby, actually takes over the levels of estrogen and progesterone that we need to sustain the pregnancy. And that's about it.